Get the cash flow you need with an APP cash advance from CCGA. Pay expenses, make upgrades, perform maintenance, and more with interest-free and low-interest financing. Visit ccga.ca. Cash advances are made under the Government of Canada's Advance Payments Program.
It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio.
Hello and welcome to RealAg Radio here on August 27th. Yes, it is a Tuesday. It is the last week of August. I am your host, Lyndsey Smith. Super excited to be here. We have a jam-packed show for you today. We are going to be talking about announced changes to the temporary foreign worker program that may or may not impact agriculture, but absolutely that has been a program under scrutiny in, of course, mainstream media. But overall, we need to know, are the announced changes going to have an impact on agriculture? So Drew Spoelstra with the Ontario Federation of Agriculture is going to join me to talk that one through. I've also got a great discussion with Luke Struckman and Shawn Catherwood. These two are involved in what is sure to be a very interesting learning experience for the first cohort in 2025. This is the Canada TAP program, and it is a way to connect agronomists with new learning about applying soil health principles to commercial agriculture. Very cool. We're also going to speak with Rob Hannam. He is the CEO of Farm Health Guardian, and he's looking for participants for a pilot project. And at the end of the show, my colleague Kelvin Heppner has a fascinating discussion with Gerry Friesen, talking about managing stress at harvest and, of course, taking care of ourselves and all the different things that are going on this time of year and overall with farm profitability and managing that stress. Absolutely looking forward to today's conversation. Thank you for joining us here on Sirius XM. Or, of course, if you're listening to the podcast, we appreciate that too. Head on over to RealAgriculture.com. You'll find all the stories that we talk about here on the show there as well. All right, let's take a break, and I'll be back with more RealAg Radio right after this.
We're joined right now by Terry Drabuk. What is Genesis Fertilizer?
It's an initiative to build a nitrogen plant with farmers. So our target is to get 75% of the plant owned by farmers and 25% from a strategic investor.
Where we see fertilizer prices at right now and supply and all the challenges, I think there's a lot of farmers looking at this as a very interesting from an operational standpoint, but also as an investment. Terry, if somebody wants more information about the Genesis project, or I'm interested in investing some money here, this sounds like something that I should be putting some money to work that's off farm, diversifying my investment portfolio, and it has a benefit to my farming operation as well. How do you suggest they do that?
Well, our website's pretty robust, and there's all the contact information is on there. You can contact any one of the board members. You can contact myself. There's a link to both our phone numbers and our email addresses for everybody who sits on the board and is in senior management.
Hey, make sure everybody you check out the website, genesisfertilizer.com.
The Pulse School on RealAgriculture.com has everything you need to get your crop off to a great start and a strong finish. Whether you're growing chickpeas, fava beans, lentils, or peas, you'll get all the latest and best agronomic information at PulseSchool.com. A library of top-notch agronomy videos from industry experts available on demand at your fingertips. Visit the Pulse School, brought to you by BASF on RealAgriculture.com.
Back to RealAg Radio here on Tuesday, August 27th. I am your host, Lyndsey Smith, and this segment is brought to you by Mazex. Field by field, Mazex is bringing Canadian seed to farmers across Canada. Mazex is your source for high-performance soybeans and grain, silage, and grazing corn hybrids. Visit Mazex.com to find your local Mazex representative. Joining me now is Rob Hannam. He's CEO of Farm Health Guardian. Welcome here, Rob.
Hello, Lyndsey. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm pleased to be here on RealAg Radio.
Okay, so exciting news this week. We got a call out for some pilot project participants, and we are going to delve into who you're looking for or what you're looking for and why. But first, let's start with what or who is Farm Health Guardian?
Great, thanks. Farm Health Guardian, we're a digital biosecurity technology. So we have hardware and software, and we're trying to help livestock producers reduce disease risk. So we improve biosecurity, check their biosecurity compliance. Are they actually following the procedures that they've set out for themselves? We launched in 2020. We're based in Ontario, and we've got started in the past couple of years with some customers in Manitoba, and we're hoping to expand our technology across Canada.
So, I think about biosecurity. Certainly, I think of hogs, I think of dairy, I think of poultry, but also near and dear to my heart, of course, sheep. But I also think about disease threats that, are perhaps more manageable as far as the traffic coming in and out of my farm, those sorts of things. But then I think about something like avian influenza, and I start to think about just how important and how potentially economically important it is to have biosecurity measures in place. So, thinking about how Farm Health Guardian came to be and got together, how large of an issue is biosecurity for our food system?
Well, disease risk is the issue, and it grows every year. And the species you mentioned, pork, poultry, dairy even now, you hear a lot in the news every week about diseases, infectious diseases, disease spread. So avian influenza, we're all aware, and it's moved across some different groups, and we're seeing it in dairy in the U.S. And certainly it's had a big impact on turkeys and chickens here in Canada. Pork is our initial focus. And there's a respiratory disease, PRRS, which is, cost millions, hundreds of millions of dollars every single year in terms of losses. If you look at your cost of production, feed, of course, is your first cost. But if you include the losses due to livestock disease, it's likely the second largest cost to a farm operation or an integrated system after feed costs. So if your second largest cost, it's really something to look at. It seems to be getting worse. As our farms get larger, they're more connected. There's more trucks or people moving back and forth across these different systems. We're way more integrated than we were 20 years ago. And with that comes the risk of disease spread. So that's really the problem we're trying to solve.
Mm-hmm. Now, specifically, and one of the reasons we're talking today is the call has gone out for some pilot project participants, which is exciting. So what is this project? Who are you looking for? What are we trying to put together with this specific project?
Yeah, we got started in our business mainly in Manitoba in the swine sector, and a majority of farms in Manitoba are using Farm Health Guardian to help them be more aware of biosecurity compliance, reduce that risk of disease spread between farms. But the next step for us really is to demonstrate that technology in different species groups, in different production systems in other provinces. And every farm is a little bit different. And so it's important to first start and say, okay, what do you need? What are the risks in your unique situation? And how can we adapt the technology for you? And that's what the pilot projects are about. So we're seeking 10 to 15 pilot projects across those three groups, pork, poultry, dairy, across Canada. And the ideal candidates for a pilot, Lyndsey, would be a group of farms that are working together in a loop or a production system, okay, whether they're under sort of common ownership or just contracted or just working together. That's where we see that risk. They've got livestock trucks or feed trucks or maintenance trucks that are moving in between, or they've got work crews that move from farm to farm to farm. And we can help bring visibility to that and make people more aware, and then check to see, are we complying with the rules, the biosecurity rules we've set for ourselves.
Now, is this just for farms, or could this be a feed company, or could this, how wide of a swath are you cutting for this pilot project? I suppose the future and this pilot project might look very different.
Yeah, great suggestion. Veterinarians, if you're a vet and you've got common biosecurity protocols across a group of clients, that's that's fair game. I think we can help with that. A feed company who wants to check their biosecurity rules that they've set for their customers. Are we following the truck wash procedure that we set? Do we follow the right visit order in terms of flock age or down the health pyramid? And with Farm Health Guardian, they could receive an alert if their truck breaches a biosecurity protocol. And that's one of the products we launched this year in June, is called a breach alert. So if a transport truck or trailer breaches a protocol, the farm owner, the veterinarian get a breach alert, and so they can deal with it in real time. That's one of the things we've found in the past couple of years with Farm Health Guardian. Number one is there's more visits than you think. So oftentimes when I talk to a farmer, the first thing they say is, well, what's digital about biosecurity? And so we talk through that in terms of, it's a way to manage your biosecurity protocols. You manage everything super well in your operation, your feed costs, your gain, your genetics, and you're using software and Excel spreadsheets to do that. Yeah. But in biosecurity, it's just word of mouth, text messages. Mm-hmm. So we're giving you a software management tool to really understand and manage and communicate your biosecurity protocols. The second thing they might say to me is, well, we don't really have many visits. I don't have a lot of risk. And oftentimes when we do, hey, we'll link to the GPS of the different trucks that come to your farm. We'll give you some GPS trackers that go on your vehicles. And let's just actually see. And oftentimes it's like, wow, there's way more visits in a week than I ever expected. And then the third thing is we often uncover, and not in all cases, but pretty much, in many, is that the protocols they've set and believe are being followed aren't always carried out in real life. And it could be through maybe a conscious business choice not to follow it that day for a good business reason, or it could be lack of training or just lack of awareness. Right. And so those three things are usually discovery points, how much traffic there really is, and whether your biosecurity protocols are being followed or not. So feed company, livestock company, veterinarian, or group of farms that work together is the ideal candidates for a pilot system.
Okay. So, and that brings up, I'm incredibly practical by nature. And so it really does bring home, because sometimes I think we can talk about a platform or a piece of software or whatever, and we're like, yeah, okay, but realistically, to me, this opens up exactly that, as you said, sort of that discovery phase of, some potential fail points in a biosecurity protocol that are actionable, which is so incredibly important. Like, these are things that you could potentially manage for in real time with that, right, as you said, like a breach alert or those sorts of things. But I also, to me, in thinking about what a biosecurity protocol looks like, to find, just through going through your daily routine, to find those fail points before there's a problem is incredible. Like, to me, that's where the value really is.
Yeah, strong biosecurity is your lowest cost way to reduce disease risk by far. And each producer invests somewhat in biosecurity, but if it may be under the covers or silent or some we've done the training, we think it's in place. But over time, people change. People fall off the wagon and need to get back on. Or we've had cases where, the farmer's paying a premium to their trucking company to do certain procedures, wash the truck every night before you come back, or follow this order. And, at the start, best efforts, I'm sure, to do that. But over time, some of those practices have fallen out where the customer is still paying a premium for that service and isn't getting it. So we had an example with a new customer this year, 2024. And when they came on and we linked with the truck fleet that's servicing their farms, and they had 12 breaches a week that they had no idea were happening. And now they've been able to reduce that to 2 or 3 breaches a week on average. So we've brought awareness of something they didn't even know was happening, that they were paying extra for. Mm-hmm. And now through visibility, real-time feedback with the drivers or the people involved, they've been able to reduce those breaches down to 2 to 3, which is a huge reduction in risk for them. A disease outbreak, and those were swine operations, it could be $1 million for a PRRS break in a large sow farm. So big savings there.
Yeah, huge. Okay, so for those who are interested, so we've sort of gone over who this might apply to, which is, I mean, I think that's a pretty wide window of who might be able to take part in this pilot project. Where can they go for more information if they're interested or if they think they may want to participate?
Yeah, the best place is to go to our website and learn about our technology. So it's farmhealthguardian.com. And send us an email. So you can click on the website and send a message, or the email address is info, I-N-F-O, at farmhealthguardian.com. So we'd love to hear from veterinarians, trucking firms, groups of producers that work together in a supply chain or a loop or a production system, and we can understand their needs and get started.
Okay, sounds great. All right, Rob Hannam with Farm Health Guardian, thank you so much for joining me here on the show today.
Yeah, great. Thanks much, and I really appreciate it.
All right, we'll be back with more RealAg Radio right after this.
Apply anhydrous ammonia and protect your application earlier than normal this fall. Defend against potential losses and protect your bottom line with Centuro Nitrogen Stabilizer. Patented active ingredient pronitridine offers agronomically effective protection where it matters most, below ground. Easy to handle Centuro is also non-corrosive for fewer worries about downtime or equipment damage. Start early with Centuro as part of your nitrogen management plan. Contact your local retailer or visit centuro.ca for more information today.
If you're involved in the agriculture industry, it's important to stay informed on all the latest issues affecting your business. At RealAgriculture.com, we offer fast, reliable news, information, and insights to help you keep on top of all of the latest in Canadian agriculture. Visit RealAgriculture.com and sign up for our free daily newsletter covering everything from news, agronomy, animal agriculture, and much more. Visit RealAgriculture.com/subscribe today.
RealAg Radio is Canada's only daily radio show focused on agriculture. Get expert advice on Agronomic Monday. Tuesdays and Wednesdays will cover a broad range of issues. Thursday we'll hear from farmers across the country on the Farmer Rapid Fire. And we'll wrap things up Fridays with the RealAg Issues panel with Kelvin Heppner and Lyndsey Smith. Join us Monday through Friday at 4:30 Eastern. And don't forget about the replay at 7 in the morning on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM.
Welcome back to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio, Channel 147, Sirius XM. I am your host for the day, Lyndsey Smith. And the best answer for agronomically effective dual nitrogen protection? Glad you asked. That's Super U, premium fertilizer from Koch Agronomic Services. To learn how this ready-to-use granular fertilizer product protects nitrogen and boosts efficiency, visit kochag.ca. That's K-O-C-H ag.ca. All right, joining me now to talk about a very exciting new project happening on the prairies, I've got Dr. Luke Struckman and Shawn Catherwood joining me. Luke, there is a new course, we'll call it, available for CCAs, for those who are advising farmers. And it's a bit different than we're kind of used to. Tell us all about what was announced this week through the Sustainable Food Lab.
Yeah, so this particular project, it focuses on training crop advisors in the implementation of soil health practices with their farmer clients. And so the course itself consists of 10 weeks of training, plus it's also working to build a community of practice amongst crop advisors. And so the idea is that in addition to the training, there's also weekly Zoom meetings during the course. And once the course finishes, there is a Slack server that will be made available to each cohort of the project. And they can use this as a way to continue communicating with each other.
Okay, so very much sort of a learning experience, but with a way to stay in touch and continue learning together even after the project is
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's what I mean by community of practice.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. Now, so Shawn, you're the lead agronomist for Southern Saskatchewan on this project. What kinds of things might agronomists learn or have to dig into in the course of this project?
Yeah, I think a big part of being lead agronomist is kind of focusing on your region, your geography, and being able to provide, especially from my point of view, very practical knowledge and hands-on knowledge of what I'm actually doing and seeing in the field. So a big part of some of the content actually is going to be photography, videography, and all that kind of stuff from the field, which all lead agronomists will be doing the same, but it'll be kind of interesting to see the differences between the regions, Manitoba, North Sask, South Sask, because the climate is very different. Soils are very different. Cropping systems are very different. And so for Southern Saskatchewan context, I'll be providing content anywhere from cropping systems that work in this area that kind of play into the soil health principles to very specific practices from kind of soil health perspective to biologicals, fertility management, cover cropping, and even looking at like the practicality of how all this can work logistically on a farm with existing equipment that is in the marketplace, but also maybe some other equipment that farmers can utilize to make some changes on their farm. So from my perspective, it'll be very practical, almost how-to type information, I would say, which is, I think, a big reason why I was brought on with my experience on that kind of stuff. So.
Mm-hmm. Now, Luke, this is also, so it's an interesting kind of way of putting something like this together. So when we should say this is the Canada TAP, so that's the Trusted Advisor Partnership is what it's actually called. There is an affiliation here with Assiniboine College and, of course, industry support as well for this going forward. So will this be completely online? Is there classroom and get-together aspects of this, or is this completely sort of choose your own adventure? How's it going to work?
Yeah, the majority is online based just because of distance and cost. That's really the only practical way we can do this across two provinces. That being said, we will have some meetups occasionally that will allow for the different cohorts to interact in person. Okay.
Now, Shawn, you're having a big part of actually putting together the content that agronomists are going to be learning from and those sorts of things. What for you has been perhaps the most challenging part of trying to work into the curriculum here? You're gearing up for 2025 to roll this out. So what has been sort of the crunch time this growing season to get ready for this?
Yeah, well, I actually just kind of came on board literally within the last month. So just kind of getting started on this stuff. But I think my answer with that would be in this specific area, the drought situation that we're in, and trying to capture good content for that can be kind of depressing at times if it's dry and everything looks a little bit crappy. And so that's definitely a challenge. But again, it's also a learning opportunity to really fold that into the whole package of kind of holistic management on a farm. How do you deal with the dry cycles? How do you deal with the wet cycles? And everything Mother Nature throws at us is a learning opportunity and something that we can learn together on in this kind of process through TAP. So, which is exciting, really.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And let's face it, as you've laid it out, Manitoba, Northern Saskatchewan, Southern Saskatchewan, excessive water some years, certainly in Northern Saskatchewan, Manitoba. Drought, though, has been an issue in the past few years, and sometimes extremely so. So this is part of what farmers have to face and what agronomists have to be certainly advising on. So nothing like trial by fire. Let's put it that way. Now, so Luke, I did mention this is to roll out 2025. You're looking for, that original cohort of how many people and who, I guess, who would be interested or who would this sort of work for as far as who might be interested in joining this program?
Yeah, primarily we're looking for independent and retail agronomists in this first cohort. It will be open to kind of a wider set of agronomists and crop advisors later on, but this kind of initial cohort is, again, retail and independent agronomists that work directly with farmers and giving them crop advice.
Okay, and Shawn, you did mention that you're lead agronomist for Southern Saskatchewan. So will there be two other agronomists that will be part of this project as well for the Manitoba and Northern Saskatchewan?
Yep. Yeah, that's the plan. So right now there's a lady based out of Melfort who's covering northern Saskatchewan, and then currently looking for a Manitoba agronomist to cover that area.
Okay. Shawn, from your perspective, why do you think a course like this is important? Why do you think it's needed?
Yeah, I think I was first introduced to this idea when I was with PepsiCo, and I was really fascinated by it right from the get-go because of kind of two factors here. Number one, just the need for more knowledge transfer as it relates to soil health principles in modern day agronomy. I think that's lacking a little bit at some of the bigger schools, which is changing with time. But this was kind of a niche idea to really help drive some of these principles home with both young and older agronomists that maybe want to learn more about it. But then also on the second factor really is the amount of impact this could have, because when you kind of stream this information through independent advisors and agronomists, they have a huge influence on what takes place on their farms. When I say their farms, I mean their clients' farms. And in this day and age, a lot of farms, from small to big, really rely heavily on their agronomists to be able to provide proper and timely advice. And being able to drive some of these principles streaming through those advisors really could have a huge impact on adoption across thousands and thousands of acres in the prairies here. So yeah, just the approach in general is a very impactful approach, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So Luke, from your perspective in being co-lead on this project, why do you think it's important?
That's a good question. I think one of the biggest reasons why I see this project as important is that it helps to de-risk the adoption of soil health practices. So some of these practices, can be quite risky to adopt, and you really need that technical advice over a long term to make them actually work on the farm. And so, if you have an advisor that's been trained in soil health practices, that has a community of practice that they can rely upon, that does help to take some of the risk out of adopting new practices.
Mm-hmm. Lessons are expensive when you do them in the cropping year. Yes. We'll share that, right? Yeah. Exactly that. So, and Shawn, to your point about accessing, advisors that obviously are, they could be helping farmers make decisions on thousands of acres in a year. So, that impact potentially is huge.
Mm-hmm. For sure it is, yep.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess maybe that's where we'll end it on this discussion. Although Luke, I'll ask you for more info, but Shawn, what do you hope to see in a first cohort? How will you know you've been successful this first year going through this? What do you hope to see out of it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think for me, it's always the peer-to-peer side of it that's really important too. So I think engagement from the first cohort will be awesome, and finding those agronomists that are truly interested in this kind of practice or this field, I guess, of study, and people that are very curious and have a lot of curiosity and want to learn more and are willing to learn and have an open mind to be able to take that information and deploy it on their clients' farms. So I think what success would look like would be a very highly engaged group, ask a lot of questions, very collaborative, bouncing ideas off each other. And we're going to have a lot of very smart agronomists that are coming in through this that probably know a lot more than I do. And just being able to have these discussions with them in more of a peer-to-peer type situation to really learn from each other is what I could see being the most important part of all this, really. So, yeah.
Awesome. What is it? You never want to be the smartest person in the room. You don't learn anything if that's the case. Yeah, you bring in all the smart people with you. Okay, so Luke, for those listening potentially who are interested in either more information or perhaps joining this cohort, where can they go for more information?
Right now, they can go to the Sustainable Food Lab website, to the press release, and we'll be coming out with a website here in the next few months where more information can be found.
Okay. So Sustainable Food Lab website. We'll send everybody there. All right, Luke, Shawn, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
No problem. Thank you, Lyndsey.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, and I'll be back with more RealAg Radio right after this.
Advanced canola trait technology is here. and it's soon to be the talk of the town. Optimum Glide delivers excellent yield potential and agronomic trait performance, improved crop safety, enhanced weed control, and a wider window of application. You're going to want to see this. Learn more at OptimumGlide.ca.
If you only listen to RealAg Radio, you only get half the picture. For greater insight into the issues that affect farming, tune in to RealAgriculture.com. Crops, livestock, machinery, farm management, and the markets, even food and travel. Real Agriculture Online digs deeper into the topics that affect the way you work and live. So get connected today. Read, watch, and listen to the people who know at RealAgriculture.com.
Welcome back to Real Ag Radio here on this Tuesday, August 27th. I am your host for Tuesdays with Lyndsey Smith, and thank you for joining me ever so much. We've got a lot to cover still in today's show, and joining me shortly will be Drew Spoelstra of the Ontario Federation of Agriculture. But first, nitrogen fertilizer is your farm's #1 expense. Farmers are working together through Genesis Fertilizers to solve the problem of high prices and security of supply by planning a state-of-the-art nitrogen plant. Security and earnings through ownership is the solution. Visit Genesis today at genesisfertilizers.com to learn more. Welcome back to Real Ag Radio and RealAgriculture.com. I am Lyndsey Smith, and joining me now from home, for a change, is Drew Spoelstra. He's the president of the Ontario Federation of Agriculture. Drew, how are you doing?
Doing all right, Lyndsey. It's hot today, but I think we'll manage to get through it.
Yeah, all right. We could talk about farming, but we've got to talk about something far more important, at least with the announcement this week. So Minister of Employment, Workforce Development, and Official Languages, that's quite the handle, Randy Wasino, I think I'm getting that right, has put out a bit of a decree of how things are going to change with the temporary foreign worker program in a month from now, so end of September 26th. And this is potentially not a surprise, given how much attention this program has had in the last little while. But of course, wanting to know, Drew, from your perspective, given the announcement this week, what impact we could see in the agriculture sector.
Well, what we've been told so far is that there will be no impact to primary agriculture and, to the food security sector is what they call it. I just call it agri-food. But, I think from production and processing standpoints, it looks like we will be unaffected. And OFA has been working alongside our partners like TARC and LICC and OFVGA and the Farms Organization to continue to monitor the changes and what might be coming down the pipeline. But they've been pretty consistent that agriculture will not be affected. And, that's the way we'd like to see it stay. Obviously, there's the labor force is vitally important to our sector, particularly, in the fruit and vegetable industry and the more labor intensive type pieces of agriculture. And so, we want to make sure that these programs continue to remain sustainable for the sector to continue to access these workers.
So, how did we get to this point is, I guess, one of the questions that maybe we need to back up, because I think, we often talk about the temporary foreign worker program. It has had challenges. It was certainly a challenge through COVID to make sure that this, very essential workforce got to Canada. And as you mentioned, and as it's being called, sort of this food security angle to all of this, but there were changes made to this program in the past few years that really did see an increase in other industries. Are we worried that this increased scrutiny of this program and like you say some of these changes shouldn't impact it, but we definitely have seen more scrutiny of this program. Will that potentially negatively impact agriculture in the longer term?
Well, I think there's always the potential down the road that some of these changes and, other future changes could have an effect on the program. Obviously, from our perspective as an organization and our partners across the industry, we're going to continue to highlight the benefits of this program, to highlight the good work that farmers and employers across the industry are doing, and, continue to maintain that the program is available for farmers and folks across the agriculture industry. I think, there's been obviously some challenges coming out of COVID in terms of employment and filling positions out there across different sectors. and different parts of the workforce. And that's probably where, some of the challenges have come from. I'm not going to point fingers at any one particular employer or sector, but, we know the history in the agriculture sector stream of this program. And, it's been pretty solid, not without challenges by any means, but we've done our best to make sure that the program is viable, that folks that come here to work are treated fairly and treated very well, and that, we can continue to maintain the integrity of the program going forward.
Mm-hmm. So when you're having the oodles of meetings that you have, I follow OFA on social media. You guys are really busy. So, is that heard loud and clear as far as, obviously this program has challenges in other sectors, but is working well? Not saying it's perfect, but it's been working well for agriculture. Does that, does that resonate? Is that heard by the powers that be?
I think so. Yeah. We talk about labor all the time. There's never any shortage of challenges when it comes to agriculture, but labor is certainly one of the big ones that, we continue to work through. I think wherever possible, farmers are going to try and hire Canadians first. But the reality is we continue to see a high vacancy rate in agriculture. It's something like 5.4%. And so, we need to continue to be able to put food on the table for Canadians and for folks right around the world through our export markets and things like that. And, we need to continue to have access to the labor pool and temporary foreign workers as well. So, our number one goal in those conversations with, municipal leaders, with provincial and federal leaders as well, is, we have this program. We do our best to maintain it as best as well as possible, and, enhance it when that needs done. And, we saw a lot of challenges through COVID in terms of housing and where people are going to live and things like that. And we met all those goals. We met some of the strict regulations that were put down on the agriculture industry, and we continue to evolve as the program goes along, and we want to make sure that it's sustainable into the future as well.
Mm-hmm. All right. Before I let you go, shifting gears a little bit, you were in Ottawa last week and did not come visit me, and that's fine. That's okay. I wanted to tour you around a solar site, but that's okay. But what was last week's meeting? Just an incredible amount of big names, really, that your team, your executive got to meet with. What was last week? What were some of those discussions? It looked pretty cool.
Well, when I have more time, I will come and visit for sure. I really want to see that solar farm and the running than everybody else. But it's a busy time at home as well. We were at the Association of Municipalities of Ontario conference. They have a 3-day annual conference, usually held in Ottawa, but it does bounce between Ottawa and London sometimes. And so municipal leaders from 444 municipalities across Ontario get together. They hold a lot of delegations and things like that with provincial ministers and ministries. And we had an opportunity to have a booth there and chat with a number of great ministers from around the province of Ontario, from the Minister of Finance, electricity and electrification, agriculture, obviously, rural affairs, municipal affairs, the list goes on and on. So, yeah, we had a good time, a lot of good conversations about agriculture, about labor, about challenges around prime agriculture land and what the future looks like for farmland preservation. And it's a good opportunity to connect with folks. I think there's about 2,500 people at the conference every year. And, we certainly did our best to continue the conversation about agriculture with all the different people in the room.
Mm-hmm. Super cool. All right. I'll look for my invite next time. I was not invited to any of these meetings. It's weird, but anyway. Okay. So that, it's really neat. I highly recommend anybody who's interested in seeing where OFA has been, follow them on social media. Your team does a great job on that. And we'll keep track of, what potentially we see, if anything, on this TFW program. I'm glad to hear it looks like agriculture will continue to function as it should, but we'll keep track. So, Drew, lastly, you are home, you said. We are late August. What does the farm look like this week? What are you doing?
Well, we're trying to wrap up some second cut hay. It's been a real challenge getting hay off in any type of good quality and condition. But lots going on there. We're getting some manure out onto some wheat ground. Want to plant a cover crop after that. And we're still finishing up our final stages of our feed room construction and things like that on the dairy barn. So, yeah, lots of stuff going on. There's no shortage of work. It's been on and off with OFA and farming. We toured some greenhouses and things like that a few weeks ago in Leamington, and had our summer board meeting down there and had a good time. So it was great to see some of the things going on again with temporary farm workers and some of the struggles and challenges and opportunities that lie ahead in the industry.
Alrighty. It's a tough job, Drew, but it's a pretty cool one that you get to see so many different aspects of agriculture in this province. I appreciate it. All right. Thank you so much for your time. I'll let you get back to that second cut and all that goes with it. But thanks so much for joining me on the show today, Drew.
Absolutely. Have a great day.
All right. We'll be back with more RealAg Radio right after this.
Since 2010, the Wheat School on RealAgriculture.com has been helping farmers to grow great wheat. Covering everything from markets, the latest research, pest and disease control, all the way down to on-farm trials, the Wheat School has everything your crop needs. Check out our massive video library on YouTube and grow great wheat with the Wheat School, brought to you by Syngenta Canada, C&M Seeds, and Alberta Grains.
Peter Johnson at WheatPete, RealAgriculture.com. I'm the host of The Word, and I love doing The Word. I love the questions. I love the challenges. I love having to apply agronomics to all over the globe and areas outside of my normal jurisdiction. Also, I love the feedback the most, where growers challenge me, tell me about their plot results, help me to learn. The Word, absolutely the best part of my day.
Welcome back to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio Channel 147, Sirius XM. I am your host, Lyndsey Smith, and we go now to an incredibly important discussion with Kelvin Heppner and Gerry Friesen talking about managing stress at harvest.
For Real Agriculture, I'm Kelvin Heppner, and harvest is certainly underway across much of North America. There's a lot going on. It's a busy time of year. Add on top of that uncertainty, in some cases, about profitability with lower crop prices. Questions about cash flow with railways and the prospect of a huge railway shutdown, especially impacting farmers in Western Canada. And joining us to talk about some of these stressors at this time of year, we're pleased to welcome to Real Agriculture Gerry Friesen. Gerry is the Chief Administrative Officer, a founding member of the Manitoba Farmer Wellness Program. He's also the author of a new book called The Recovering Farmer. Welcome to Real Agriculture once again, Gerry.
Thanks for having me, Kelvin.
So, I just listed some of the things that are outside of farmers' control at this time of year. There's certainly a lot of pressure that farmers, I think, in many cases are dealing with right now.
You're absolutely right, Kelvin, and it's a stressful time for grain farmers in particular this time of year because, of course, we all know they made a huge investment in spring and putting the crop in, tending to that crop. Of course, at the outset, we had excessive moisture in a lot of areas of the province, and then suddenly, boom, it dried up. And so there's always those unknowns. And then, of course, as you get ready to start taking the crop off, and as you just told me, you are already taking it off, then there's the uncertainty of the yield, quality, and all of that. Never mind in the bigger picture when you have things like in just a few days ago, of course, there was that threat of a rail strike. We're not entirely sure how that's going to turn out, but these things outside the control of a farmer create anxiety because they have certain obligations. They have their financial obligations that they need to meet, and when things like that crop up, it just adds to the uncertainty, and it's no fault of their own, and it's totally outside of their control, and so that creates that anxiety that we often talk about.
What are some of your tips in terms of coping with this pressure, this anxiety, this stress at this time of year as we are running around, and it often feels like chaos in our world, and there's a lot of different things happening, like you said, outside of our control.
Right, and I think it's important, Kelvin, that as individuals, number one, we have to understand the fact that we're not alone. There's others out there that are experiencing this too. I know from my own personal experience when I was farming and going through some difficult times that it's incredibly important that we verbalize that we're able to talk about it. And that might be to a family member, it might be to a neighbor, and of course, in situations, it's good to reach out for some professional help too. But I always challenge people first and foremost that it's important to talk about it. And in my mind, this talking about it does a few things. And I often reference when a neighbor dropped by when I was in a really tough place, and he allowed me to open up and talk about my situation. And as I talked and as this spewed out of my mouth, I came to understand some of what I was actually talking about didn't make sense. In my brain it did, but once I verbalized it, it didn't. And that's because we spend a lot of time worrying. And of course, worrying is letting our minds create something we don't want to have happen. But when we're able to talk about it, it clears the air on that and makes that load just a little bit lighter.
Yeah, and that's something that when you're sitting in the cab all day or hopping in and out of the truck all day, you may not have those meaningful conversations where you get that feedback from another person during a busy season.
You're absolutely right. And all that time alone just gives that brain so much more opportunity to start ruminating and creating scenarios, worst case scenarios, which doesn't help at all.
So do you have to be intentional then about having your family join you for supper kind of thing? Or like you said, running into the neighbor and maybe taking that extra 30 seconds to chat with them, that kind of thing?
Absolutely, you have to be intentional. And if it happens without being intentional, good for you. But again, very often when folks face this kind of stress, they seem to pull back even a little bit more, and they don't want to bother going inside for dinner with the family, for example. They don't want to bother running into town for a quick coffee. They don't want to bother having a quick snooze because they just think they need to work harder. And so the more they work, the more they isolate themselves, and the worse it can get. So I like that word of being intentional about it, Kelvin. I think that's really important.
You just mentioned having that quick snooze, that nap maybe in the certain when it's timely, that kind of thing. Sleep is another big factor contributing to that anxiety if we're lacking sleep.
It certainly does, and I mean I'm fortunate that I get to sleep really well, but I know that lack of sleep when we get tired, that creates even more of those unwanted thoughts and ruminations, and we'll spend time at night laying in bed wide awake. And of course, that's the time when everything is dark around you, when you start worrying even more, and that anxiety just increases.
We mentioned the rail strike earlier, and I do sometimes wonder, and I know some farmers, I think, have a better coping strategy for this than others, and maybe what I do inherently as working also as a reporter, I certainly like to follow the news. But there's also the risk of getting caught up in broader societal anger and frustration and those types of pressures. How should we approach those types of issues where, yes, it is something important, and yes, it's something that affects us, and yes, it's something that we feel we need to speak out about, but at the same time, not letting it overwhelm us and add up or be a tipping point for us?
Well, and that's a good point, Kelvin. And of course, I've often said that social media may be the downfall of society, because, of course, that's where you can get stuck down in the weeds and get involved in all these controversies and the ways people communicate things. And then suddenly things are communicated that aren't even true. And yet we fall into the trap of, oh, no, now we're going down that road. And again, it just... So people have to regulate themselves. And I know even before social media became such a big thing, I've talked to people, and I've done this myself, is where you have to come to the decision, you know what, I'm not doing that well. The news out there in the world, whether it's provincial, federally, globally, isn't that great. Perhaps I need to switch off for a while. Take a break from watching the news. Take a break from scrolling through social media. And I know that's easier said than done, but it's also interesting how your mental health will improve if you do these things.
Yeah. What do you recommend in terms of resources? I know you mentioned in some cases it is appropriate to seek professional help. How do you provide direction there when farmers have questions about, is this something that I need to go seek help for, that kind of thing?
Well, and you know what? Go seek help for, yes, ultimately a lot of people could benefit from doing that. I've talked to folks that have said, well, you know what, it's not that I need help, I just need to get over this and things will improve. And sometimes it's as simple as just having that 1 or 2 conversations with a therapist, with a counselor. Sometimes having even more than that is beneficial. It's never been easier than it is now, Kelvin, in Manitoba. The Manitoba Farmer Wellness Program has been up and running now for 3 years. I believe we're in our 3rd year. And it's been successful in helping folks. I've seen the anecdotal evidence through testimonials I've seen. And like I say, it's incredibly simple. People can, but sorry, I was also going to say prior to that, we also have a Manitoba Farm and Rural Stress Line in Manitoba for crisis moments. That's always a good help too. One phone call can be beneficial. But if you need something a little bit more, all you need to do is go to our website at manitobafarmerwellness.ca. You can click on book an appointment. Our 4 counselors that we have pop up. You can read about the 4 counselors, their credentials, their bios. You can pick one that you feel might be best fit for you, and you make that appointment directly with them. It's free. It's 100% confidential, and I can guarantee you that it will be helpful.
And it's up to, you may have said this already, six sessions that you
It's
can
actually have? 9. It's
9.
actually 9.
Okay.
We were able to increase that to 9 earlier this year. It's for farmers, it's for their families, and also for farm employees.
All right. That's for farmers in Manitoba, certainly to check out. Gerry, do you hear from organizations or advocates for farmer mental health in other parts of Canada or North America looking at the model that you have here? Or do you look to others in other parts of the continent for how they serve farmers in this area?
Well, we were very fortunate, Kelvin, when we started our discussions and started building our program. We were able to look at what was happening on Prince Edward Island and Ontario and a few counties, very much built our program off of that. In the meantime, also these programs have popped up in other places. I know Saskatchewan has a program, Alberta does, BC does, and in Eastern Canada, certainly if they don't yet, they are working on that as well. So yes, it's available pretty much right across Canada.
All right. Yeah, and I think there's something to be said about having somewhat of a regional or local aspect or organization feel behind some of these services as well.
Well, and it's helpful, Kelvin, when you talk about that regional aspect. I agree with you. We have a great board of directors in our program. Most of us, all of us, have certain credibility out in the agricultural world. We're able to go to trade shows. We're able to talk to groups, and so people get a level of comfort with what there is, because of course there's still a stigma involved, right, and always has been. Although it's decreasing, people still feel that way. But yet, when they talk to people that they know or have heard about before, they can make that connection, which gives them a level of comfort.
All right. Well, thank you, Gerry, for taking the time to join us and to have this important conversation, and some reminders along the way to like you said, we have to regulate ourselves at times and take responsibility for how we're feeling and the stress load that we're bearing, making sure that we're taking care of ourselves during this busy season. Thank you, Gerry.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks a lot, Kelvin.
All right, we're going to leave it there. What a fantastic discussion from Kelvin and Gerry. I really appreciate that. Of course, I appreciate everyone joining me on the show today. Drew Spoelstra, Rob Hannam, Luke Struckman, Shawn Catherwood. Thank you all for making this show possible. And of course, shout out to our producer, Jason Bradley Strovey, for making this all sound beautiful. If you've got feedback on today's show, 1-855-776-6147, or find us across social media at Real Agriculture. We'll talk to you for the Issues panel on Friday. Cheers, everybody.
Get flexible farm financing with an APP cash advance from CCGA. Save on interest costs and sell when the time and price are best for you. Visit ccga.ca to learn more. Cash advances are made under the Government of Canada's Advanced Payments Program.